nation known for conflict and crisis, now on the brink of breaking in two. As the resource-rich south is poised to break away, its northern capital, Khartoum, is beginning to boom. And two Sudans may become bitter rivals seeking investment and development. Well, after 54 years in existence, the majority of those in civil war, the splitting of Sudan is all but inevitable. It will take a referendum to rubber stamp it, and then the South will go its own way. But creating a nation state will be a huge struggle after decades of neglect. Half the South Sudanese live on less than $1 a day. The same amount, more than 4 million, needed food aid in 2010. 92% of women cannot read or write. Less than 2% of children who enroll in primary school complete their studies, and 3/4 of the population have no access to basic health care. Al Jazeera's Harim Matasa has the story from Juba in just a moment. First, Mohammed Val has the sentiment from Khartoum.
I'm walking on the rooftop of a 9-story building. Just a few years ago, this used to be the tallest tower in Khartoum. Now, it's almost invisible. High-rise buildings like this one have mushroomed across the city. The country has witnessed an oil boom for the best part of a decade. The number of bridges has increased from only 3 15 years ago to more than 20 now. Sudan boasts the biggest hydroelectric power dam in Africa, providing the country with self-sufficiency in electricity. But there is something wrong with this picture. Sudan's area is over 1 million square miles, almost the size of Western Europe. Successive governments have failed to link far-flung regions to the center through a modern network of highways, airports and railways. Most of the infrastructure is concentrated in and around Khartoum, while in areas like Darfur and southern Sudan, infrastructure is almost non-existent. And this is one more reason why many people in those areas have decided to take arms and fight for social and economic equality.
One reason why people in southern Sudan so desperately want independence from the north is because they see it as a chance to develop their region. Many feel Khartoum has neglected them for decades, and they're trying slowly to rebuild their region after decades of civil war. They're making a start all across the capital, or the town of Juba, which is the capital of southern Sudan. People are rebuilding, buildings are coming up. Over there you've got people who've come back to the region and they've started to build shops and businesses to try and earn a living. And there's a sense here in Juba town that things are slowly coming back to life. The town of Juba is bustling, but there's still a lot of work that needs to be done. For example, this tarmac over here, it was laid down in August this year, but they've only come so far. Lots of work still needs to be done. As you can see, only one side has been done. The other side still needs to be completed. It's going to take time, but it's not just a case about getting independence. If that happens, once people in southern Sudan go and vote on January the 9th, it's more about where the money will come from. Independence is the first step, but they need to convince the international community, donor agencies to keep on pumping money into this region if they are really going to see this capital city, this region flourish and develop the way they want to see it happen.
And we'll be focusing on Sudan's upcoming challenges a little later. We'll also find out what role the United States, Qatar and United Nations may play in a divided Sudan. Leader of the Southern Breakaway Movement, Lam Akol, joins us to share his views about the state of the nation. And with memories of past wars fresh in their minds, we'll take a closer look at the groups armed and ready for more conflict. Al Jazeera's Hassan Ibrahim looks now at Sudan's path to development.
Thanks, Jane. South Sudan, with an area of 640,000 square kilometers, suffers from an absence of infrastructure and huge developmental problems. The past 5 years witnessed a failure on the part of the South Sudan government to really change living conditions, with about 80% of the population living on less than $1 per day. Healthcare is non-existent, with an infant mortality rate of 112 per 1,000 and maternal mortality rate of over 2,000 per 100,000. There are no reliable statistics about HIV infections, but the numbers are expected to be very high. Compared to what the southern Sudanese government received from oil revenues, there is little to show for it. Nevertheless, some progress has been made in the fields of agriculture and mining. Education now is better, with more schools being built. but the overwhelming picture is rather bleak. Investments in the economy of the South have increased, especially from Arab countries fearful of bad relations after the secession of the South. There are plans to build dams along the White Nile for irrigation and hydroelectric power. There are also plans to grant oil concessions to Western companies to end the Chinese monopoly over oil production in the South. There is acute shortage in trained staff and professionals, which led to an influx of workers from neighboring Uganda and Kenya. That is why the SPLM government is focusing on training. Obviously, any development plan won't succeed without adequate transportation system. Hence, road construction is expected to be big business.
As Africa's biggest country, Sudan is one of the most culturally, socially and geographically diverse nations on the continent. There's desert in the north, mountains in the middle and swamps in the south. Around 600 tribes call it home. Rakaya Abu Sharaf joins me now. If and when the country does indeed split, it'll create two intertwined but two very different countries. A barren northern part of the Sahara Desert, I mean, you can see the difference there, where the average salary is just $3 a day. This raises two issues. The misconception, firstly, that the north is rich, that it's successful, that it's an economic hub, when in actual fact most of the money is confined to Khartoum.
It is a rampant oversimplification. In fact, in the north, there is grinding poverty. Most of the population don't have access to basic needs as education and health, and that needs to be put in broader perspective.
And that incredible oil wealth, and yet the average salary is just $3 a day, just shows that that money is not filtering through. Why not?
Redistribution of resources is going to be key to alleviate this.
And stamping out corruption.
And stamping out corruption as well.
Now, but with more than 2/3 of the people can read and write, the Green South, on the other hand, has suffered decades of neglect by the North. We talk about the salary there, that's less than $1 a day. How come there is such a difference between the North and the South?
It is very important when you talk about the North and the South to talk about multiple margins and multiple centers. So who exactly in the North is perpetuating certain practices that continue to disfavor the South?
And what about the SPLM? I mean, have they been effective?
The SPLM, since it joined the Government of African Unity, has also the responsibility to account for 5 years of being part of the structure.
Because it's quite incredible. In the South, less than a quarter of the people here are literate. Something like 92% of women can't even read and write. I mean, what's the social impact of that?
Loss of creativity and talent of more than 50% of the population.
That clearly needs to be addressed. I mean, it might be rich in oil and full of fertile farmland, but most, as we've been saying, benefits have just gone up north.
That is fair.
Now, how those riches are shared in a secession scenario is still to be decided, but the world is watching closely. The US still has Sudan under sanctions, and that's blocking many companies who are keen to capture the oil and minerals. It means the world is looking on, so let's get the views from the United Nations in New York, Qatar, but first from Washington, D.C.